William bans King Charles from making peace with Harry. It's lunacy, palace in shock. There are moments in history when the cracks inside the most powerful institutions become impossible to ignore. And right now, inside Buckingham Palace, inside the very heart of the British monarchy, something extraordinary is happening. Something that royal insiders are describing as unprecedented. Something that has left courtiers whispering in corridors, advisors losing sleep, and King Charles, himself stuck between his love for his son and his fear of losing everything he has worked his entire life to build. Because Prince William, the future King of England, has put his foot down, firmly, completely, and with a fury that nobody inside that palace has seen before. He has looked his father in the eye and essentially said, "If you bring Harry back, you do it without my blessing. And trust me, that is not a small thing. That is not just a family disagreement over Christmas dinner. That is the heir to the throne drawing a line in the sand and daring his own father, the sitting king, to cross it." Now let me take you back a little bit, because to truly understand how we got here, you need to understand just how deep this wound goes. Most people think the rift between William and Harry started with Meghan. It did not. The problem started long before Meghan Markle ever walked into Harry's life, but she, and more importantly, the choices Harry made after meeting her, turned a private family tension into a global spectacle. And William has never, not for a single day, forgotten that. Sources close to William say that every time he turns on the television, every time he opens a newspaper, every time a reporter shoves a microphone in his face and asks about his brother, he feels the same sharp twist of betrayal, because this was not supposed to happen. These two boys, these two sons of Diana, were supposed to stand together. They were supposed to be a team. And then Harry picked up a pen, sat down, and wrote a book that tore the family apart in ways that may never be fully repaired. When Harry's memoir Spare was released, William did not read it immediately. That much has been reported. But those around him did. And what was fed back to him? The physical fight in the kitchen, the accusations about Meghan, the deeply private conversations laid bare for the entire world to pick through, sent William into what insiders described as a cold, controlled rage. This was not William screaming and throwing things. That is not who he is. This was William going very, very quiet. And according to people who know him well, when William goes quiet like that, it is far more frightening than any raised voice. He made a decision in that moment. He was done. The drawbridge was going up, and it was not coming back down. Now here is where King Charles enters the picture, and where things get genuinely complicated. Because Charles, whatever his many faults as a father, does not want to die estranged from his younger son. He is a man who spent decades being painted as the villain, the man who broke Diana's heart, the man who chose Camilla over his own family's happiness. He has carried that weight for years. And now that he is dealing with his own health battles, his own quiet confrontation with mortality, sources say he wants peace. He wants to look his son Harry in the face before it is too late and find some version of forgiveness. Insiders have confirmed to the Daily Beast that Charles would very much like to reconcile with Harry, but he is being blocked from doing so by William. And that tension, that push and pull between a father's heart and a future king's will, is what is tearing the palace apart right now. A close friend of William's spoke about this recently and did not mince words. They said that William believes his hand has been strengthened by the renewed disgrace of Prince Andrew. Think about that for a moment. William spent years telling his father, cut Andrew off, remove him. It is not appropriate to have someone with Andrew's history sitting at royal tables, breaking bread at family gatherings, representing the crown in any capacity. And what did Charles do? He hemmed and hawed. He talked about Christian forgiveness. He let Andrew stay. He let Andrew linger in Royal Lodge. He gave Andrew chance after chance. And now, just this week, Andrew threw a public tantrum at workers outside his home, embarrassing the palace in front of the entire world. And William's people are saying, quietly but firmly, "We told you so." William was right about Andrew. And he is right about Harry too. The friend of William was direct about his view. William always said, "Just cut Andrew off completely. It's not appropriate to have an alleged sex offender breaking bread with the royal family." Charles was so desperate to be seen as embodying the spirit of Christian forgiveness that he let Andrew back in. William was right about Andrew, and he is right about Harry. That quote right there. That is everything you need to understand about where William's head is. He is not acting out of spite. He is not acting out of jealousy. He genuinely believes that allowing Harry back into the fold, even in a small, unofficial way, would be catastrophic for the monarchy. And he has the track record to back it up. But let us talk about Charles for a moment, because this is not just about William. Sources describe the relationship between William and Charles right now as tense, difficult, formal, and fraught. William carries a deep-seated resentment of his father rooted in his childhood trauma. This is not new information for royal watchers, but it is newly relevant because it explains why Charles is in such an impossible position. On one side, he has Harry, his son who is estranged, hurting, and living thousands of miles away in California. On the other side, he has William, his heir, his future, the man who will one day sit on the throne and determine the legacy of the House of Windsor. Charles cannot afford to lose William. He simply cannot. The monarchy's survival depends on the Prince of Wales, and William knows that. Royal experts confirm that Charles is not willing to go against his heir's wishes. The animosity between the brothers runs so deep that William has effectively shut the door on Harry, and Charles has no choice but to respect that. And yet, and this is what makes this story so extraordinary, Charles keeps trying. He keeps looking for small ways to move toward Harry without triggering William's full wrath. Charles and Harry had a private tea at Clarence House that lasted just under an hour. Described as a positive step in the right direction by royal biographers who believe things could eventually change, but only with significant give and take from both sides. William was told about this meeting. He did not approve, but he tolerated it, because ultimately, as one source put it, he is a loyal soldier. He respects the king's rank. But tolerating it and welcoming it are two very different things. Harry himself apparently made a quiet attempt to reach out to William, a private effort to rebuild some kind of bridge, but according to royal author Omid Scobie, that plan ultimately failed to materialize. The wall between the brothers remains firmly in place. And what is heartbreaking, truly heartbreaking if you step back and look at this as a human story rather than a royal drama, is that these are two men who grew up side by side. Two boys who lost their mother when they were barely old enough to process grief. Two brothers who held each other's hands at Diana's funeral and walked behind her coffin in front of the entire world. And now they cannot even be in the same room without it becoming a diplomatic incident. Insiders say the two brothers have not had any meaningful communication since 2022, when they briefly came together for the funeral of Queen Elizabeth II. That was it. That was the last real moment of connection. And even that was described as stiff, formal, and deeply uncomfortable. Now let us talk about what William's actual objection is, because it goes beyond just being hurt feelings. A palace source told the Daily Mail that William is back at the point where if you mention Prince Harry in his presence, he would throw you out of the room. He is doubling down. But why? What specifically has crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed? Royal experts point to several moments: the Oprah interview, the Netflix documentary, the memoir, but they consistently come back to one thing above all others. Harry took the most private moments of their family life and monetized them. He sat down with Oprah Winfrey and described conversations that William believed were sacred. He wrote about physical altercations, about arguments, about deeply personal childhood wounds. And he sold that story to the highest bidder. William remains deeply upset by the revelations made in Spare, in the Oprah interview, and through other media appearances, including the accusation about racist remarks within the family and the revelation of a physical altercation between the brothers. For William, a man who has spent his entire adult life being trained to never show weakness, never reveal the inside of the palace walls, never give the press ammunition, watching his brother do precisely the opposite felt like the deepest possible betrayal. And then Harry came back to the UK for public engagements and charmed the press. He smiled and laughed, and the tabloids fell in love with him all over again. Commentators noted that Harry's visits brought something the royals had not offered in a long time: laughter and joy, while William and Kate were being described in some quarters as increasingly distant from public life. And that stung too. Kate's position in all of this matters enormously and is often overlooked. Princess Kate, who fought her way back from a cancer diagnosis and a year of devastating health battles, is described by sources as standing completely firm alongside her husband. She has not softened. She has not lobbied William behind closed doors to give Harry another chance. If anything, sources suggest, she may be even more resolute than William on this point. Because Kate remembers specifically what was written about her. She remembers the accusations. She remembers her name being dragged through a global media circus. And she has made her position very clear to those around her. The Wales household is united, completely and without question. So where does this leave King Charles? Caught, completely and utterly caught between the two most important relationships of his life. Charles is hugely afraid of making his relationship with William even worse than it already is. And he knows that going against William's firmly held belief that no member of the royal family should confer legitimacy on Harry would do exactly that. Disney Plus and ESPN. Every move Charles makes toward Harry is a move away from William. And right now, William is the one holding all the cards. He is the future. He is the continuity. He is the person the monarchy will need to rely on for the next 40 years. Harry, for all the love Charles carries for him, is not coming back to royal duties. He is building a life in California. His children are growing up American. The path back is not just complicated. Many insiders now believe it simply does not exist anymore. Royal biographer Robert Hardman recently said that while he is not detecting any change in the relationship between William and Harry, he is not ruling out reconciliation someday either, describing it as a situation that will require significant give and take from both sides. Royal family. But give and take requires both people to be willing. And right now, the only giving and taking happening inside Buckingham Palace is in the form of increasingly bitter arguments between a king who wants peace and an heir who demands accountability. Royal expert Kinsey Schofield put it plainly: the drawbridge is still up, and it has not come down. For Harry to have any chance of moving forward, he would first need to acknowledge his role in creating the rift. And experts say he shows no sign of being willing to do that. Royal family Harry, to his credit, or perhaps to his detriment, depending on your perspective, has been remarkably consistent in his public position. He says he wants reconciliation. He says he loves his family. He says his conscience is clear. But he also says that reconciliation cannot happen without truth, and that is the crack in the foundation of any peace deal. Because what Harry calls truth, William calls betrayal. What Harry frames as speaking his experience, William frames as weaponizing private pain for public profit. They are not even operating in the same reality anymore. And until one of them shifts, truly shifts, not just makes a polite gesture at a public event, nothing is going to change. What makes this moment particularly dramatic is the timing. Charles is not a young man. He is dealing with health, challenges that are not going away. The clock is ticking in a very real, very human sense. And sources close to the king say that the urgency he feels about resolving this before it is too late is growing. He does not want his legacy to be a family torn in two. He does not want to be remembered as the king who could not bring his own sons together. But William, steely, determined, utterly unsentimentalized by the pressures his father feels, is holding the line. And he will keep holding it until Harry does something that earns back the trust that was shattered. Interestingly, Harry himself is reportedly convinced that there is one specific thing that could make William forgive him, and he is preparing to make that move during his upcoming return to the UK. IMDb. What that move is exactly remains unclear, but the fact that Harry believes there is a key, that he has not given up entirely on unlocking that door, tells you something important about where his head is. He is not indifferent. He is not gleefully burning bridges from his Montecito mansion. He is a man who misses his family, who misses his brother, who misses the life he once had, and he is trying, in his own imperfect, complicated way, to find a path back. But William is not in the business of easy forgiveness. He is not going to open that door because Harry shows up and makes a nice gesture. There will need to be a real reckoning, a private, genuine acknowledgement of the damage that was done, not in an interview, not in a book, in a room, face to face, man to man. And whether that conversation ever happens, whether these two brothers ever find their way back to each other, is the question that the entire royal world is holding its breath waiting to see answered. Because here is the truth that nobody inside the palace wants to say out loud. The monarchy needs this to be resolved. Not just for the sake of Charles's peace of mind, not just for the sake of William and Harry's relationship, but because the world is watching. Because every day this rift continues, it chips away at the institution. It reminds people that beneath all the pageantry and the palaces and the perfectly pressed uniforms, this is just a family. A deeply dysfunctional, unimaginably pressured, sometimes profoundly sad family. And families, no matter how powerful, can break. William knows this. That is what makes him such a fascinating figure right now. He is not just acting as a wounded brother, he is acting as a future king who is making a calculated decision about what kind of monarchy he wants to lead. He is drawing lines, setting standards, sending a message, and not just to Harry but to everyone inside and outside that palace, that there are consequences for betrayal, that the crown is not a prop in someone else's story, that the institution matters, and that he will protect it, even if it costs him his relationship with his own brother. So here we are. March 2026, the palace in quiet crisis. Charles desperate for peace, William immovable. Harry watching from California, waiting for a door that may never fully open. Again, and somewhere in the middle of all of this, the future of the British monarchy is being quietly, carefully, and painfully decided, not in grand ceremonies or coronations, but in silences between brothers and arguments between a king and his son. This is not just a royal drama. This is a story about family, about betrayal, about the impossible weight of legacy. And whether you are a devoted royal watcher or someone who stumbled onto this video by accident, I promise you, this story is far from over. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think William is right to hold the line? Or is he making a mistake that he will one day deeply regret? Should King Charles stand up to his son and pursue peace with Harry on his own terms? Or does he owe it to William to respect his wishes? Drop your answer in the comments right now because I read every single one and your opinion genuinely matters to this channel. If this video gave you something to think about, please give it a thumbs up. It takes 2 seconds and it helps this channel reach more people who love diving deep into royal stories like this one. And if you are not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you never miss an update. We cover the royal family like nobody else does. The real stories, the real drama, the real truth behind the palace walls. And speaking of real stories, I have another video waiting for you right now that connects directly to everything we just discussed. The link is right there on your screen. Go watch it. I promise you will not be disappointed. Until next time, take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.